You're listening to the Gilbert King Elisa Show.
Friday in India, police arrested the shooter hired to kill Amit Nair, a man from Kerala who was killed in an honor killing earlier this year in May. He was killed because his in-laws disagreed with his marriage to their daughter. According to the story, the parents had not known about their marriage. The couple was married in 2011, and they didn't make their marriage public until 2015. They had arranged to have a public wedding. The parents did not know that they were already married. During the time that they were waiting to get married, after they made it known that they were going to marry each other publicly, the parents had been insisting that the couple not be married because of differences in their caste. They were of different social orders. And since the parents disagreed with it, and since the couple did not want to split, what they did was then decided to start looking for people that would end it for them. When I say people, I'm talking about hitmen. And they were willing to pay up to 3 lakhs, which is about roughly $5,000 in American money, to have Amit Nair, who was to marry their daughter, killed. They learned this from one of the men that was hired as a hitman and refused to go through with it. But he said that this was in the making for about 6 months, since the parents found out that they were to be married publicly in 2015. Now, Amit did not know that there was a hitman out for him. He decided to keep the marriage secret because he knew what people would think. He knew that since there was disapproval about it, that he said it's best we keep it secret and then we make it public when it comes time for us to make it public. And maybe by then I can be in a better position that I will be accepted, which he never was. From the story, it looks like the parents were against it. The brother was against it. Amit was 28 years old. The brother in this case was 28 years old. And the brother in this case had also been a former police constable, but he was now retired. And the families have known each other for a long time now because they had been neighbors. So, like in many cases, it's okay if you're neighbors, but once the families start getting together, once the families start mixing, it's been proven to, in many cases, to be a problem, depending on the society in which you live. And this is one of those cases where it looks like that happened. The shooter had been at large for quite some time now, but he was arrested on Friday in India. And it appears that on May 17th of this year, they decided to go and confront Amit where he was living. They asked him to come outside. And what's shocking about this is that the parents seemed to be there with them when it happened. They asked Amit to come outside with them, and there seems to be some kind of a struggle in which Amit was then shot. And they had arrested about a week later. They had arrested about 5 people known to be involved with the case, but 2 were still at large, and those people have been apprehended and they're going to be brought to trial. And again, this is one of those cases where somehow it seems to be better to ruin the life of a loved one and disregard the fact that she's going to have to go through a lifetime of embarrassment, of pain, of hurt. And it's totally disregarded that now you'll probably be put to death, spend your life in jail, and totally disregard what's best for the family when you're doing something that's supposedly best for the family. And the caste system is nothing new in many societies, and in a place like India, tribal divisions have been going on since 1500 BC, and it can range from a lot of differences when it comes to jobs, when it comes to economic value, and when it comes to familial arrangement, and it seems to intensify when it comes to marrying off loved ones or just people in your family, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of love involved here. The man who was shot, Amit Nair, he was an engineer. He was 28 years old, from Kerala. If you go look at his LinkedIn page, you can actually see where he was making steps in the right direction to be more responsible, perhaps to build a stronger family, and just for something about how you look, just for something about how society sees you, it can end up in your demise. He now leaves behind his education. He now leaves behind his family and his wishes for whatever happiness he was to have with his wife and with her family, if there was ever going to be some point of agreement. He had 3 bullet injuries, and he died on his way to the hospital. And the man who arranged this whole thing, or the man who arranged for the gun to be used, he was also caught. But in a place where money is very scarce, you can get people to do anything for very little money, especially when they think that they're not going to be found out, or especially if they think that they're doing something that is just. And one thing that a caste system, from what I've heard from speaking to a lot of people, does is it puts a lot of pressure on everyone in the system, whether it's the parents, whether it's people who are trying to raise their value in this system, whether it's the boy, the male figure in the family, where he feels that now he's being looked at as someone who has to maintain a certain kind of order, a certain kind of financial and economic standard. And this is something that seems to put a lot of pressure on everyone, but it seems to stem from a period of time when people had to rely on these things to move ahead, and whether it's antiquated or not, it's something that a lot of people still feel trapped by it, but other people also feel that this is the best way to keep society in line. So I am curious as to not only what the parents thought about this. The father was in his 50s. The father of Amit's in-laws family was in his 50s, but his brother-in-law was in his 30s, and I would like to hear what he thought about his position in such a family, and why he was so against the marriage, why he was, and him being a former police officer, what he felt about it. What was his thinking behind participating in the killing of his brother-in-law, and whether, because it said he was a retired police constable. I also would like to know if he felt any pressure in keeping the family financially afloat because of his position, or did it make it easier because he knew that he would be did he think he was going to be helped by the law in some way or not? So those are the questions I would have for him. So again, tribal divisions are something that goes on in many places of the world, in whatever society that you're a part of. But I wonder if, again, the question just seems to be, at what point does it make more sense to keep your loved one alive than it is to take their life, or ruin their life, because it seemed for them the only way that they saw separation happening, or for this to work for their daughter, was to killing the man that she loved. So this wasn't an arranged marriage, which seemed to be part of the problem. This was a marriage that they consider a love marriage. And in the love marriage, where the parents have no say in who their sons or daughters marry, they feel that they have less control. They feel that if something goes wrong with the marriage, that they'll have less of a say, or less of a say of what the kids or the grandchildren will do. So a lot of it has to do with what the parents can control. And from speaking to a lot of people in places like India, what I've understood was that if their parents have arranged a marriage, then they can come between the couple if anything were to arise. And they said that many of the divorces that happen in the society is because the parents weren't involved, and that caused for many of the problems because the parents never wanted the marriage in the first place. And the whole reason for having an arranged marriage is to avoid problems later. But when I asked what the problems were, a lot of it seems to stem from their standing and their place in society, which was respected over generations. And to break from that, it would be a loss of some kind of dignity, not only in society, but within the family. So I'd like to know what people who come from some of these cultures, what they think about it. Even if you moved out of these cultures, how do you see it if you moved to places like the United States or anywhere else? Do you still feel that same pressure to remain abidant to the culture that you're from, to maintain that caste system, to maintain the social order? And how do you see social stratification, and how does it affect the way you live? And in the hopes of understanding this a little more, is why AAMIT NAIR was killed. Maybe you can drop some insight as to share some insight as to why he had to, why the family thought it was so hard for this marriage to go on, and why they had to take his life.
This has been a Gilbert King Elisa production.